Summer is finally here and I couldn't be more excited. I have so many things in store for you in today's video with wildflowers, jam, and even a hair tutorial. If you're new here, I'm Suzanne, and I live on an organic farm in BC, Canada. And my husband has had his best friend visiting for the past 2 weeks from Quebec. And he came here to help work on our farm while my husband has been doing interviews to try to hire people for the summer. And they've gotten so many things done, including planting our tomatoes and cucumbers in the back of our greenhouse, seeding our lettuce beds, and taking care of orders. And my job on the farm is predominantly weeding. I take care of all of the microgreens that we have growing indoors, and I do a lot of cooking. So I made a lot of meals for his friend while he was here, and we enjoyed the visit thoroughly. Here is our new puppy, Sage, and she is fitting right in on the farm. She's with Bruno all the time, and they play together, and they love being outside while we're working. And so she's fitting right in, and she has lots of room to play and run, and it's a really good life for a dog on our farm. I have a beautiful flower garden, and I also have chamomile growing in my other vegetable garden, and it's coming to the end of its life cycle. So I'm harvesting some of this chamomile to bring indoors, and the rest of it is really probably going to get ripped out. And the chamomile has been my favorite herb, and I save it for teas, but it's also really beautiful in bouquets. This is my summer of ease and rest. And what I mean by that is that I am not going to be pushing myself to do anything that I don't want to do. So this year I haven't planted my entire vegetable garden, and I'm okay with that because we are so busy on our farm, and in the past I've just pushed myself way too hard. So this year, I am just going to follow my Bliss. And right now, my Bliss is taking me outside, and I'm going to be picking some of these wild roses. I'm going to be making a strawberry rose petal jam. And I picked up a book at the bookstore that has small batch preserving in it. And there was a recipe for peach rose petal jam. And so I don't have peaches right now, but I have strawberries, and I really like the idea of a strawberry rose petal jam. So following my Bliss means going outside and doing some foraging. And before me and my husband were farmers, we were foragers, and we loved going to the outdoors and learning all about the medicinal plants, edible plants, and we foraged and made our own jams and teas. And so I still have that spirit for foraging in me, and I just love it. So right now the roses are out, and rose is part of the apple family, and all roses are edible. And the roses that are pollinated and will die away will be replaced with rose hips this fall, and then I can do things with those as well. Now, the main thing you want to look out for with the roses is look for the freshest and newest flowers. Now, on my journey back from all of our wild rose bushes on the property, I am picking some wild daisies. And I plan on making some wildflower bouquets. And there is just so much floral life right now. But what happens is that the summer solstice is a big change, and after the summer solstice, the light hours start to decrease. In the spring, they're increasing, and then the solstice marks the time where it starts decreasing, and all of the flowers will then start going to seed and form seed pods. So right now is the perfect time to pick wildflowers and make wildflower bouquets. I'm also picking some sage in my herb garden because they've produced some beautiful blooms as well. A couple of videos back, I was asked by a viewer for a hair tutorial. She really liked my hairstyle, so I will share that with you in today's video. What you'll need is a couple of claw clips, a barrette, and some simple bobby pins. This is a very easy hairstyle, and I consider this a protective hairstyle because I'm trying to grow out my hair. Now, I'm starting out by just straightening the top part of my hair, and I don't always do this. I know it's damaging, it's not good for my hair, but I do it sometimes if there's just too much frizz. And I actually learned about protective hairstyles from Catherine's sewing channel on YouTube. She does historical sewing and historical hairstyles. I will link that down below. Now what I do is I take that front bit of hair and I kind of flip it up and then do a little twist. And I like to keep this really loose because I used to do a lot of tight, messy buns, and pulling on your hair is actually very damaging and really not good for future hair loss. And so I'm being mindful of that as I'm getting older. So I'm just taking the claw clip and putting that in place just to hold it while I do the other side. And this couldn't be easier, and it creates a loose effect that is not damaging. It's not pulling on your hair. And I feel like it covers everything nicely, especially my incoming grays. Once I have it in place and I kind of do a little check, then I will take the clips out and replace it with the barrette. And then this just holds everything in place. And I really like this look. It's a little old-fashioned, but I love that. I love historical hairstyles, and I'm an old-fashioned kind of woman. So having a small mirror is really, really good because you can check the back of your hair and see how everything looks. So now I'm taking the bottom piece of hair and I'm flipping it up, and then I do a little bit of a roll underneath and tucking it. And tucking in your ends is really important with protective hairstyles because your ends are kept safe. So I'm flipping that up, and then I'm going to pin it in place using the bobby pins. And I have some long bobby pins and some short bobby pins, and I use the long ones horizontally to kind of slide in where the roll is happening. And then I use the smaller bobby pins to kind of anchor the big ones. And I only need a couple of bobby pins to make this work. Now I have to check it with the mirror again because, you know, you have to see how it looks. And I've got one side kind of hanging down. So I just need to tuck that and fix it. And I only wash my hair about once a week. and I will condition in between then. But right now I'm on about a third day of hair, so that's why I use the straightener, because if I have fresh hair, I don't really need it. I have really curly hair, but it also tends to get really frizzy and it mats really easily. So I braid it at night for bed so that it doesn't tangle. And after checking it, now I'm going in with my boar bristle brush and I'm just smoothing out the top. And I really love the boar bristle brush. It's very non-damaging. Now I'm just pulling out a couple of little side pieces and I'm just going to curl those with my straightener. And I just like to have a little bit of looseness so that it's not a tight looking hairstyle. And this hairstyle only takes me about 5 minutes. It's really easy. And then I'm ready for the day. And I really like having my hair up and out of my way, especially with work. And this is going to help me grow out my hair. So there we have it. Moving on to the wildflowers, I've had them sitting in water for about an hour just to kind of restore them a little bit. And now I'm going to get started creating some wildflower bouquets. I also have my chamomile, and I've got another small bouquet that I made for my flower garden. So what I'm going to be getting started with is separating all of the types of flowers that I picked into piles. And I'm going to be removing the bottom foliage. Now, this is a technique that I learned from watching florists and people who create bouquets. And that bottom foliage is really just going to rot in your water. So that's why you want to remove it. It's going to help your flowers last a lot longer. The 4 types of flowers that I picked are oxeye daisies, yarrow, the sage flowers, and clover. And I think they all are beautiful together, and I can't wait to make these arrangements. One of the things that I like to do is add just 1 or 2 drops of plant food to my water in my vases. And I feel like that's just going to help the plants a little bit. So that's one of my little tips. And then I'm just getting started creating the bouquets. I'm picking up some of the daisies first because I have more daisies than the other flowers. And then I'm just going to rotate this and continue adding flowers around. And I'm going to try to place them at the level that I want them to sit at in the bouquet, not paying attention to where the bottom stems fall. And this way I'm going to get a perfect arrangement by the end because I'll cut all of the stems to match each other. I have always been a flower lover, and I've always enjoyed making bouquets, but I haven't always been able to afford the luxury of having flowers, buying flowers, or even having any space to grow my own flowers. So I used to go and admire other people's flowers and take pictures of them and come home and draw them or paint them. And so it's a luxury for me now to be able to have my own flower garden, but I still love wildflowers. And that's why I wanted to share this with you today, because not everything in life has to cost money. Nature offers so much abundance, and wildflowers are free for the taking. So I encourage you to go out wherever you live and look for wildflowers, and they can just add so much beauty to your home and create such a spirit of luxury and femininity into your space. So there is my first bouquet. And this is just as pretty as any arrangement that you would go and buy, in my opinion. Now, another trick that florists use is adding a lot of greenery to a bouquet, because this means you don't need to use as many flowers. And although I don't have any greenery with me right now in this video, I actually have a lot of herbs growing in my flower garden. I have anise, I have lemon balm, mint, and different herbs that I can use as greenery. And not only do they add a beautiful fragrance, but they're also just a really great source of greenery for me in my bouquets. Another little tip is I like to use mason jars as a vase for my bouquets. And as much as I love a beautiful vase, they do take up a lot of storage, and so I don't like to keep too many of them around. I like to use what I already have, which is a lot of mason jars, because I always have them around. I'm a canner, and they're a great vessel for any arrangement. And so I really encourage you to just use what you already have on hand. So there's one of my smaller arrangements. And it's just going to be so nice to have these in the home. I ended up with 3 arrangements. And I'm just going to be placing these around my kitchen area, but having them on your bedside table, in your bathroom, or just around your house is just going to give an uplifting spirit to your home. I hope this gives you a few tips and techniques on creating your own arrangements out of what you can find in the outdoors. And these are some professional techniques, but the same thing applies for even a wildflower. They are all the same, and you can treat them all the same way. Now, moving on, I picked up this beautiful book at the bookstore, and I'll link it down in my description box, but this is a book all about small batch preserving, and there are scones and sweets in it as well. And this book gave me the inspiration for the jam that I'm going to make. And rather than copying anyone else's recipe, what I like to do if I'm creating my own recipe is I will just look up strawberry jam, and I'll find a bunch of different recipes, kind of get the idea of how much of this and how much of that. And then from there, you can just create your own recipe. So that's what I did with this strawberry jam. And it turned out so delightful and beautiful. And I will be sharing a separate little video with that recipe, just so I have a standalone video, which I've been doing a lot of lately. But I'm also going to share this jam recipe down in my description box. And it's a small batch. I'm only making a pint jar. And there's no canning needed, so it's so simple and easy and doable. Even if you don't have strawberries, you can just go buy strawberries or even use frozen. I'm starting out by sterilizing my jar in boiling water for about 15 minutes. And then I've got beautiful strawberries fresh out of my garden and the wild rose that I just collected. Now, if you're not going to use your roses right away, keep them in the fridge. They'll last longer. Now I'm just slicing up these strawberries, and I want 2 cups of strawberries. We're going to get those strawberries into a saucepan and get it on the stove with a medium to high heat. I'm just taking that sterilized jar out, and I'm going to let it sit and dry a little bit. And then to the 2 cups of strawberries, I'm adding 1 cup and 3/4 of sugar and a tablespoon of lemon juice. We're going to get this to a boil and simmer it for about 20 to 30 minutes. In the meantime, while that's cooking, I'm removing the rose petals from the rest of the flower, and we need 1/2 cup of rose petals. And this is just so beautiful, and you can really only do this at a certain time of year. And you can make this jam without the rose petals, but I just think it's beautiful. So the jam is going to foam up a little bit, and you want to keep stirring it every so often and not let it boil over. And eventually it is going to get to the right consistency. Now, you can do the plate test, which is putting this onto a cold plate and seeing if it gels up. And if it does, it's ready. Or you can use a candy thermometer and you want it to get to 220. Once it's done, we're going to remove it from the heat and stir in those rose petals. And they're quite delicate, so you don't want to add it while it's cooking. You're just going to add them at the end. And I think this is just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. All that's left to do is put this in our sterilized jar, let it cool, and then keep it in your fridge, and it's ready to use. It is that easy. It's so simple, and I hope you'll give it a try. If you're new to my channel, consider hitting that subscribe button. I make videos every week on homemaking, from scratch recipes, and life on our farm. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video.